For joining us on this very wet British evening. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for turning up and for being with us today. And to also welcome, and you're in for a treat because this evening our new High Commissioner is with us, and this is his first official event. Can we get a round of applause, please? And I'll now invite His Excellency Alexander Williams, High Commissioner for Jamaica to the United Kingdom, to come and give you the formal welcome to the Jamaican High Commission.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Councillor Arlene Hilton, Mayor of Brent, the first Jamaican woman to hold this office. Former Mayor of Croydon, Councillor Elisa Fleming. Is the former mayor here? No? Not as yet. Dr. Franklin Johnston, who is visiting the UK and is the guest of Commonwealth scholar Dr. Amoy Henry. Our special guest, Professor Errol Miller, and members of his family here tonight. Members of Jamaican community organizations, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this special event in celebration of Jamaica's Heritage Week and National Heroes Day, which coincides with the UK's Black History Month. These are significant occasions that honor the rich and diverse cultural heritage of the Jamaican people and their achievements in nation building. National Heritage Week is an annual celebration showcasing various facets of Jamaican culture, such as music, dance, art, cuisine, language, religion, and folklore. It also highlights the contributions of Jamaicans to the world in various fields of endeavor. National Heroes Day is observed on the third Monday of October, and it pays tribute to the 6 national heroes and 1 heroine of Jamaica, who fought for freedom from slavery and colonial rule, as well as justice and self-determination. They are Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Paul Bogle, George William Gordon, Samuel Sharp, Nanny of the Maroons, Norman Washington Manley, and Sir Alexander Bustamante. On this day, a ceremony is held at the National Heroes Park in Kingston, where wreaths are laid at the monuments of the heroes and heroines. Awards are also formally presented to Jamaicans who have made outstanding achievements in various spheres nationally and globally. The celebration of Heritage Week and Heroes Day is important for the Jamaican diaspora, as it provides an opportunity to reconnect with their roots, to celebrate their identity and their heritage. Heritage Week and Heroes Day also foster a sense of pride, unity, and solidarity among Jamaicans at home and abroad. I am pleased that as part of this commemoration, the High Commission is hosting Professor Errol Miller, who I promised to describe as an institution. One of the Caribbean's and Jamaican's most outstanding academics for the London launch of his book, Elections and Governance, Jamaica on the Global Frontier. This evening, we are delighted to share with you some of the rich and diverse aspects of Jamaican culture. You will hear beautiful songs and folk stories from the talented Miss Evelyn Chronicle and Mrs. Margaret John, who will be accompanied by her son, Dwight, on the keyboard. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your presence, and we invite you to sing and dance along with us as we celebrate our national heritage in true Jamaican style. Thank you.
Me alone in the wilderness. Me alone in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. God alone in the wilderness. God alone in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. Moses talk in the wilderness. Moses walk, Moses talk in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. Me alone in the wilderness. Me alone in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. In the wilderness. In the wilderness. And the next song I'm going to sing is one which you all love and can all relate to. And feel free to join in the chorus. It's a lovely song. And you can move. Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shine daily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sounds of laughter everywhere, and the dancing girl swinging to and fro. I must declare my heart is there, though I have been from Maine to Mexico. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Down at the market, you can hear ladies cry out while on their heads they bear. Ackee rice are fishes nice, and the sun shines bright this time of the year. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. I've got to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Thank you. That was the wonderful Margaret John, who came in to assist us with this afternoon at very short notice, and also the equally wonderful Dwight. Thank you so much. It is now up to me to introduce my colleague, Miss Anne-Marie Pickney, who will do the formal introduction of Professor Miller.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Professor Emeritus Errol Miller is among Jamaica's and the Caribbean leading academics and researchers. He has explored various social issues such as race, gender, and education in his work. He is the originator of the theory of place, which provides a framework for studying male marginalization and other phenomena. He has a rich and diverse career as a science teacher, university lecturer, college principal, director of the Institute of Education, MONA, chairman of the Joint Board of Teacher Education, and external examiner in education for several Commonwealth universities. Professor Miller's research and publications have had a significant impact on education, and his seminal work has influenced educational policies. He has also served as permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education, independent senator in the Jamaican Parliament, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, chairman of industrial tribunals, the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and on various boards and organizations in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and abroad. Please join me in welcoming Professor Emeritus Errol Miller.
Madam Master of Ceremonies, Mrs. Vivienne Seaver, High Commissioner, Your Excellency Alexander Williams, Mrs. Williams, and your lovely daughter, Rebecca. Deputy High Commissioner, Mrs. Patrice Laird Grant, and members of the team here at the High Commission. Councillor Orleen Hilton, Mayor of Brent. I don't know if the former Mayor, Councillor Alicia Fleming is here, but I'd like to also to include in this former Mayor of Merton and Honorary Alderman of Merton, John Dehaney and Mrs. Dehaney. I say fellow graduate of Chancellor and UWI, Rhodes Scholar, Dr. Franklin Johnstone, visiting the guest of Commonwealth Scholar, Dr. Amoy Henry, Dr. Cecily Sampson, friend and author, whose book is also here, other specially invited guest, Mrs. John for so beautifully entertaining us a while ago. I would also like to say that there are some people online, and I'd like to welcome them, especially, no, I'm not correct, yes? My wife, Dr. Sharon Miller, and our daughter, Catherine, who are only not here because of COVID at the last moment. Other specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, here and online, good evening. Your Excellency, on behalf of all of us here this evening, and those online, we are privileged and honored to be among the first to hail you publicly as you come to the crease to begin your innings as Jamaica's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. The timing with the celebration of Heritage Week could not be more auspicious. May your inning be long, your scoring of boundaries prolific, and your style of batsmanship be of nonchalant ease, whether the wicket is sticky or bouncy or both. Allow me to continue in thanksgiving. I'm indebted to so many persons for me being here tonight. Thanks to the team of Spectra Connect, particularly Mr. Matthew Gordon, Managing Director. Thanks to the team here at the High Commission, particularly Deputy High Commissioner Mrs. Patrice Laird Grant and Mrs. Seaver, Community Relations Officer. Thanks to the Resilient Tour facilitators for bringing me here as well, especially Dr. Beverly Lindsay. Thanks to the chairman of the Micro Trust, Reverend Rachel Benson, and Mr. Henry Buxton. Should I say they are the Buxtons of Sir and direct descendants of Thomas Fowell Buxton, who moved the motion in 1823, 200 years ago, for slavery to be abolished because it was inconsistent with the British Constitution and anathema to Christianity. And then 10 years later, actually moved the motion that brought about the abolition of slavery. That family is outstanding in the sense that their direct descendants have founded the Micro College, now the Micro University College, and has maintained contact with that institution in a substantial way since 1835. I would like to also thank my family here in England, my nephews, and Gary Hamilton and his family, and Richard Dehaney and his family, and my niece, Mrs. Dion Smith and her family, and particularly my sister Audrey and her husband John, who have had to put up with me for a considerable time. I would also like to thank the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson and the Honorable Bruce Goldin for their continued involvement with this project. I don't know if the videos will be played? Yeah. Well, please. Yes.
Professor Errol Miller is not only one of Jamaica's outstanding scholars and educators, but in addition, he has had a long and distinguished career as a public servant. Professor Errol Miller is not only one of Jamaica's outstanding scholars and educators, but in addition, he has had a long and distinguished career as a public servant. His latest publication, Jamaica on the Global Frontier, The Colonial Years, has come fast on the heels of its precursor, The Independence Years. This volume covers over 300 years of our journey as a people prior to independence, and it not only manifests his erudition as a historian and author, but also the sharp perceptiveness with which he has recorded and interpreted the significant events that occurred during that long period. As he has so painstakingly presented, these events did not take place in a vacuum. They were all part of a continuum. Our bitter experiences as pawns in the struggle between the Spanish and British empires, the recreation of the Jamaican population through the abominable transatlantic slave trade, from which the vast majority of us derive our heritage, the exploitation to which we were subjected through slavery and colonialism, for which there has yet been neither apology nor atonement, and our resistance and struggle for freedom, the sacrifices that many of our forebears had to make, and the resilience we demonstrated in sustaining that struggle in spite of the setbacks we experienced. What I found to be remarkable about Professor Miller's rendering is that through all of this, he highlighted the important phases of our development as a people, and as a society, and as a nascent nation, our institutional development, our capacity building, the emergence of our social organizations, and the important role that they played in leading us toward political independence. Professor Miller's special focus is on elections and governance. In that focus, he deals with the issue of power, its origins and foundations, and how those changed over time. He chronicles the use of elections as the means of vesting that power, undemocratic and discriminatory as it was at the outset of this period, and the transformation or democratization that took place toward the end of the 300-year period. It makes fascinating reading, but it also brings into sharp relief the long distance that had to be traveled between the end of slavery and the recognition of fundamental human equality. Much of our history has been well documented by noted writers, but there is still so much that has not been adequately captured. Professor Miller has sought to reduce that deficit, but he has done more than that. Historians record for posterity events in our past that serve as a reference point for where we have reached. Professor Miller has not only recorded important elements of our past, but has illustrated the connectivity in those events and their contemporary relevance to many of the challenges we face today as a people. The successes he highlights point us to the way we can achieve things. The failures and setbacks define the mistakes we must seek to avoid. This book is not only a valuable addition to the texts that are currently available to researchers and students, but will be of immense help to those who are keen on learning more about our journey as a people and our progress as a nation. Professor Miller has expanded his contribution to Jamaican scholarship and to our posterity. I congratulate him wholeheartedly, and I wish him every success in the publication of this new important book.
Warm greetings from Jay to one and all. The Jamaican High Commission deserves our highest commendation for sponsoring and hosting this special event as a prelude to Heroes Day. Today's launch in London of Professor the Honorable Errol Miller's Master the Product of Fine Scholarship, The Colonial Years, provides the inextricable links from the period of slavery and years of colonial exploitation to the advent of the Windrush generation here. It is our first national hero, Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who taught us a people without knowledge of its history is like a tree without roots. For this and previous generations of the Black race, the perceptions of Africa, and by extension of ourselves, were determined by historians and writers who were themselves the perpetrators and ultimate beneficiaries of the grievous harm they imposed, and hence of the distorted lessons they imparted to us. Professor Miller belongs to that select band who, with rigorous academic passion and painstaking research, is determined to tell us who we truly are, and of equal importance, to let the slave traders and colonizers know that we know who we are and what they did to us. Today, again, we declare that we will never allow anyone to forget the genocide and brutal sufferings of our ancestors, or tolerate the endemic racial discrimination which still prevails today. The author and Ian Randall decided that Volume 2, which deals with the post-independent years, should be published during our 60th anniversary as a sovereign nation. The decision to release Volume 1 now was an inspired coincidence. For there is an age-old European conspiracy to invalidate and discredit writings that refute orthodoxy, as Errol Miller has done. But only a fortnight ago, the Secretary General released at the UN General Assembly a comprehensive and devastating report on implementation of the International Decade for People of African Descent. The essence of its findings validate the evidence and penetrating analysis which Professor Miller's book reveals. The report said, "There's a need to halt and reverse the lasting consequences of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, apartheid, genocide, and past tragedies for people of African descent, including through reparatory justice. To this we say a loud amen." This volume provides a compelling narrative of the inhumanity of slavery, its savagery, and the promiscuity it engendered, the inherent abomination of compensating the slave owners for their property with 20 million pounds of borrowed money and compelling those enslaved to pay another 27 million pounds by working another 4 to 6 years more for their freedom, while giving them not a penny and denying them any portion of the land they had captured and retained for their plantations. The book sets out the irrefutable case against Rule Britannia. Those who fought for freedom and justice, like Sam Sharp, Tackey, Bogle, George William Gordon, were crushed with the overwhelming force of the British military. The peasants who occupied Crown lands to survive widespread hunger were massacred. It was not only sugar, rum, and molasses that made Jamaica between 1750 and 1802 the richest colony of England. For now, we also know that the mass production of wrought iron from scrap iron was an innovation of the slaves that enabled Britain to become the world's leading exporter of wrought iron during the Industrial Revolution. That process did not originate in Britain, but was appropriated from an 18th century Jamaican foundry near Morant Bay. The conversion process became a registered patent by Henry Court that was a genius of black metallurgists in an iron works near Morant Bay. It was shipped to Portsmouth from a Jamaican foundry in the 1780s that had been closed down under military law for fear of its possible use by rebels who could convert scrap metal into weapons to overthrow colonial rule. The time has come for us to debunk the notions of Francis Drake and John Hawkins as heroes and recognize them for what they were, masters of the pernicious slave trade. Amidst the piety and self-righteous expressions we hear today, we cannot forget that Captain Henry Morgan was at one time appointed governor of the colony of Jamaica, due purely to his exploits in piracy for the benefit of the crown and his fellow scoundrels of valuable treasure from the Isthmus of Panama. Professor Errol Miller's erudite work serves as a marvelous template to know and spread the story in full as we seek to redress the inequities which have resulted in the poverty and vulnerabilities that constitute a clear and present danger today. While it may not have been the author's intent, the book reveals why Jamaicans are regarded as truly unique. For we come from the Akan tribes of Ghana, the Igbo and the Ibibio tribes of Nigeria, and the West Central African tribes of the Congo, to form the subcultural, socio-political base of Jamaican society, intertwined with the indentured workers from China and India, as well as those whites who were loath to return to the wintry climes of Europe. You who belong to the diaspora know we are like none other, with little but with Talawa. Volume 1 reveals how the abolition of the slave trade in 1807 catalyzed the creolization of the people through complex gender patterns and relationships. From that unique concoction has emerged the language of the heart and soul of the Jamaican people and instilled our resilience and creativity. Oh, it's a long story, but Professor Miller shares it all in compelling prose and does so eloquently and well. By its own time prescription, the book necessarily spans that period when the first cohort of our skilled young men and women 75 years ago felt obliged to answer favorably to the call for the restoration and rebuilding of the United Kingdom after the destruction of World War II. They were responding to the call of empire. The bitter cold, the rampant racial discrimination, the habits and culinary limitations of the United Kingdom did not deter them in helping to make the nation what it is today. How sad it is that the children of the Windrush generation are treated with a disdain akin to their grandparents during the colonial years. Justice is all we seek and richly deserve. The lucid writing of Professor Miller dispels the myth of the good old days during our long and tumultuous colonial sojourn. It points out that our democratic gains have always been the fruits of clamor and bold sacrifices by our people. The colonial years contains written episodes about our struggle to establish our own identity as a people. It is time to fulfill our destiny. Out of many, one people. For together, we can build a new equitable social order and secure a brighter future for Jamaicans at home and abroad.
Mr. Patterson wrote the prelude that connected both books. Prime Minister Golden wrote the foreword for the independence years. They came to the launch of the independence years last year, 17th of November in Jamaica. So they have written, they came and they spoke, and they have pre-recorded these videos. So you can understand that they have their own reasons, which don't have much to do with me. As you could hear, there was addition to what I've written because the manuscript was put in 18 months ago. So I'm just showing you that it is, what we're talking about is an accomplishment of the Jamaican people. I'll come back to that. And believe me, when I've listened to this, a lot of the content that I would have referred to has already been said, so I won't repeat. I'd like to thank also, to conclude my thanks, to Ian Randall Publishers, who are the largest publishers in the Caribbean, having a catalog of over 400 books. I hope you see that this is a Caribbean effort. And especially to Mr. Ian Randall, Executive Chairman, to Ms. Christine Randall, to Mrs. Christina Moore Fuller, and the entire team of Ian Randall Publishers. I would also wish to say that it couldn't be said that it wasn't envisaged for a launch in the United Kingdom. But how it has worked out for this evening, by all of the persons involved, can only be the grace of God. Because it was a concatenation of independent decisions and events that has caused this. But looking back, it is appropriate because the whole colonial experience for the Commonwealth Caribbean began here in London with respect to the Western design of Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell when he planned to make a formal entry there. So it's appropriate that it starts here. I would wish to say that, and I hope you don't mind me doing a little thing. The last time I was in London, in England, was 13 years ago. Clearly, prices have gone through the roof. But transportation has changed fundamentally. I'm only telling you what I've been observing. You know, I try to observe carefully. For example, you could go from one place to the next with very little walking. All you'd have to do is lime it to the zip, and then zip it to the tube, and then transfer from the tube to the bus, and you would go. However, before you do that, make sure you have the apps for the lime and the zip. And that before getting on the tube, you have topped up the oyster. Because without the oyster and the app, you can't get anywhere. Cash is now obsolete. So, hearing the injunction that you must see opportunity in change, I have been, while here, considering becoming an advisor to the elderly from countries that still use cash, and especially those who have banknotes that are 2 or more years old, because you can't get to top up anything from those. Now, anybody who is listening online who is in doubt of what I have just said, I would say to you, go to errolmiller.com, ask for clarification, and I would take it that you are interested in this service. Speaking seriously, it took me 6 years to write these 2 volumes. And COVID has its good side because it locked me in outside of Jamaica, as a matter of fact, in the United States, so that I had the time without interruption to write. The only person I'm sorry for is my wife, because she had to put up with me testing out ideas on her, hearing her views for 18 months. You can imagine that that in itself is a test. And she kept on saying to me, Errol, you're trying to make the book say everything. Cut it down. And yet still, it hasn't said anything. So I hope you realize that there is no way in the time that is further allotted to me that I could ever tell you everything that happens to be in book. I thank both Prime Minister Golden and Prime Minister Patterson for having outlined some of it. So you have to read it for yourself. But what I'm going to do is to point out the culmination of what we have achieved coming all these 355 years in independence. And then I'll say something about how I went about constructing the book. So I'm not going to tell you what is in the book. You have heard a lot already. I'm going to tell you 2 seminal moments in Jamaica's history as a people, as an independent people. I don't know if many people will remember, or should I put it another way? Usually, when we talk about independent Jamaica, we talk about a period from 1976 to 1980. If I should go back to the great authors of British literature, 1976 to 1980 was the worst of times in political history. It is usually remembered for some horrid events. The Orange Street fire, the Evening Tide fire when 153 old women were fried, the Gold Street massacre, when murders attributed to politics amounted to just over 600. That's obscene. Violence was at the level of mayhem. Local discourse was shouts from civil society for peace. And the dialogue between the PNP and the JLP was claiming innocence of what was happening. That was it. But it was the best of times with respect to political change, fundamental political change in the electoral process. You say, how come? Because at that same time, when all of this was occurring, and a civil war was being fought on Jamaican soil as proxy between capitalism and communism, the top leaders of the PNP and the JLP, 4 on each side, met outside of public view. And should I say, if I may put it in parliamentary terms, which I think the High Commissioner will appreciate, having been a senator, behind the Speaker's chair. And they were determined that they were going to move the electoral system from its violent past to something that is appropriate for a sovereign nation. Now you say to me, you say the colonial past, you never had violence in colonial times. Well, if you read the Reverend Gardner's History of Jamaica, which was published in 1873, he pointed to the fact that violence began about 6 months after civil governance was established, when Captain Joy killed a major. And Gardner says that is the beginning of violence in elections in Jamaica. I hope you heard this. And I knew enough of that to tease my Barbadian brethren, because it had to do with Governor Muddyford coming to Barbados. And I said it's Barbados who introduced political violence in Jamaica. But I didn't know it systematically. But here is what happened when these 4, let me identify who were the 4. And I think if I identify with the 4 on each side, you may see the reason for the video. I mean, you know, we are not only literate people, we are literary, so you will read between the lines. The 4 on the JLP side were leader of the opposition, Edward Seaga, former Prime Minister and head of the BITU, Hugh Shearer, Bruce Golding, chairman of the party, and Abram Dabdoob, attorney at law. Those were the JLP 4. The PNP 4 were Michael Manley, Prime Minister, P.J. Patterson, Deputy Prime Minister, Keeble Munn, Minister of National Security, and Dr. Paul Robertson, Assistant Deputy General Secretary of the PNP. I hope you could now. So the 2 prime ministers here knew how the sausage was made. They knew that whatever has come out didn't come easily. And they have their own reasons. Now, what is it that they produced between 1977 and 1979? They came up with a solution, and the solution goes like this. We are going to create a committee called the Electoral Advisory Committee. Now notice, that is the weakest type of committee you could have, because it is advisory. But in a year's time, we want to come from it an electoral commission. And both sides are agreeing to this. And they say, how we're going to solve the problem is that we are going to remove the electoral system from control of the party that wins the election. Now, let me just break it down a little bit for you. The old system that we inherited, if you are the party that won the government, you decided laws governing elections. You decided you decided the voters list. You decided where polling stations are located. You decided and you chose who would be the presiding officers. You could go down the list. You decided constituency boundaries. You decided everything if you were the governing party. In other words, winner take all. And we had gone through 2 periods of that, one by the JLP and one by the PNP, and they realized that if we continue down this road, the mayhem that had occurred. Now, the second thing they said, we would place the electoral system under tripartite control. The opposition will name 2 persons, will nominate 2. The government will nominate 2, and we would select 3 jointly agreed on by both. And the chairmanship would rest with the 3. The other point, anything to do with the electoral system must go to this committee. And in other words, there would be no joint select committee of parliament. We would bypass that. It must go to the EAC. And if the EAC must present a report to Parliament, and if that report is unanimous, agreed on by all 7, and when the Electoral Commission came, it was increased to 8, then that report will be accepted and passed into law without change. Now remember, the highest body in the Parliament is the House, then the Senate. So they're taking a subordinate body at the level of an advisory committee and elevating it to a position in which they're going to accept whatever that. And the chairmanship resides with one of the 3, jointly agreed on by both. More than that, they go and say that if there is a dispute between the parties about constituency boundaries, about the location of polling stations, those matters will go to the selected members. And whatever they agree on is accepted as final. Now, you say that is great. Well, let me tell you, it meant that anybody who was the selected members became candidates for crucifixion. Because if you think that all parliamentarians are going to be happy with that kind of thing, you're making a mistake. But here is how it actually worked, the mechanism for it to work. It didn't mean that every parliamentarian had to agree. Every member of the House and every senator had to agree, because in Parliament it is sacrosanct that each representative should be able to express their own view and vote their own way. So how it worked was this. The whip in the Senate and the House on either side, PNP whip in the chambers, they would make sure that the majority of their members on either side voted for anything that was unanimously agreed. And if the opposition, the majority of the opposition and the majority of the government votes for a thing, it will pass. That cannot be decreed. That cannot be decreed, because it has to be voluntary. So really what happened here, if I may explain it this way, is that what they were doing at that time was fundamental. I want to make a little point here. One of the things that is strange is that every British colony, including the United States, developed a written constitution. and then statutes. But Britain doesn't have a written constitution. I'm advised that it is written in different places, so it's a matter of where to look. But there is no single document. And up to 2012, an attempt was made to do this and it failed. Now, what happened in the Jamaican Parliament in 1979 when the EAC was established is they had a debate on this matter that would be a feather in the cap of any parliament in the world, because they decided that power has to reside somewhere, but you should have conventions and codes and oaths and mores that they would depend on. In other words, they recognized the fundamental flaw of democracy. And that fundamental flaw of parliamentary democracy is that the people cannot govern directly. They must elect representatives. And the elected representatives can constitutionally and legally continue themselves in office by usurping the power of the people. What they were doing, therefore, is taking some of these things that we regard as kind of quaint about the British. You know, the Commons doesn't have a seat for everybody. There's standing room only when there's a really vigorous debate. Black Rod has to hit on the door to permit the commoners with the power to come into the chamber. I mean, we look on them as, we look on these things as quaint, but those are the British clothes by which British democracy is maintained. And what they were doing in 1979 was stripping it of that and clothing the Jamaican Constitution and the rule of law by voluntary practices that they would continue to observe. And that has been in place since 1979. Fast forward for me, 37 years, 2016. In 2016, the government, sorry, let me put it another way. None of the losing candidates, PNP or otherwise, JLP or independent, none of them felt that they had lost unfairly. Everybody accepted their defeat as fair. There were no requests for magisterial recounts of the vote. No petition lodged protesting injustice in the conduct. Everybody accepted the results. But the proof of the pudding was, it was not a perfect election. Mistakes were made by the election officials. But those mistakes were accepted as honest human error. And therefore, all of it was accepted. The government changed by one seat. The transfer of power was with great dignity, goodwill, and marked by joy at King's House. The country held together and didn't fall apart. The government did not seek to undermine the opposition, and the opposition did not try to obstruct the government, and we came through that. Clearly, when you look at that, you could see that that was the future that was envisaged in 1979 that was on display in 2016. Not only that, if you wanted to see the opposite, you just had to look north. I'm not going to say any more about that. So that is what happened. And I think you would agree that if there were 23 years over which 5 consecutive elections were in this trajectory, then we had made generational change and looked to be on a path to a different future. But democracy is not a destination. It is the continual observance of voluntary agreements within the framework of the rule of law, constitution, and statute. So that is where I felt. I was at the ceremony. I left the Electoral Commission 4 years before. And I must tell you, I have the gift of leaving. So when I've left, I've left. I don't go back to, get involved in things. But when I witnessed, I remember goose pimples coming all over me. Because you see, our countries in the world are regarded as non-entities. I'm sure you have heard that every time one of the big countries of the world that claim themselves to be the bastions of democracy, every time anything begins to go, they talk about third world, developing countries, banana republics, and we do export bananas. Because we are the ones who don't matter. And I dare say, when you look at the democracy that is in train at the moment, it compares to the best in the world. And that is not me saying so. That is the Commonwealth Secretariat. That is the United Nations. That is the various, I felt a certain I felt a certain reversing when a delegation from the British Parliament came to speak to us about the Electoral Commission of Britain. This was about 2010, because they say we have parties in the commission, but we don't get it to work this way. Because you see, if you really have the opposition and the government in the commission, you expect it to not to function. But if you exclude them, you are stopping democracy from spreading, not only in the country, but in the political parties themselves. And further, in every institution in society that requires it. Because you see, governance is not only about the politicians, and somehow we have adopted a thing aided by the politicians where they compete for power, claiming that the other side is either incompetent or corrupt. And they go into a game in which they undermine themselves. If that is the case, you can see that the rest can say, but they are all a bunch. But they are the elected representatives of the people. Let me cut off here with a little thing. Look, governance of whatever type, be it by lineage, passed on from one generation to the next, in which one family owns the government, kingdoms, or whether it is by priests who claim to be in direct contact with God, who is telling them precisely what to do, including deciding on matters of fatality and finality. Or it is warriors who, having won wars by conquest, must rule, or it is by wealth, or it is by claiming the sovereignty of the people. All are myths. Let me not call them myths. Let me call them axioms, if we want to use a mathematical framework. Or if not that, let us call them assumptions. In other words, the only way they work is for the people to make it work. It doesn't work by system alone. And that is why you cannot really be British and not accept the monarchy. Because you see, it says, God save our great king, okay? And if you look at the 4th and 5th verses, they are even more adamant. You see, it is the people's king. And everywhere, the people have to own the government if it is, and voluntary. And I must say this, when you look at royalty in Britain, and I say this without fear of contradiction, the royalty in Britain is maintained by pomp and pageantry and pride that involves the entire nation. We too have to have that to make it work. And the most vulnerable form of democracy is where the head of government and the head of the state is a single person. Look north again. You will have to look south. And look into, it's the most stable form of government. It is the bedrock on which you can move to economic development of all other kinds, because stability. You see, the powerful knows only one discomfort: disorder. And where public order is interrupted, it makes the powers that be nervous. Now, I'm not getting into anything in Britain here. I would just want to say, I close by this reference to Heroes Week. Just as I have just recorded where we have come, I would also want to say, if you trace our heroes, you can get to the same place. It's just another route. What I did was simple. I started in 2016 and just went back to the beginning of British conquest and come forward. It was a very interesting thing to do that, because I didn't write it like a book. That's how a book is written, from the start. No, for those who have been in government, I wrote it from a file. You know, when you have to deal with files, the top file is the latest thing. But to read it, you have to start from the bottom file, or you have to go back to previous volumes. If you really read files, you have to keep on going back and read it as a file. So I did it as a file. And what I found is a number of things that we might think that they are changes and they are new, but they just keep on recurring. And in that regard, let me put it this way. And I'm just as, because Prime Minister Patterson mentioned it, I put it this way. Jamaican elections is a legacy of the British, holding elections according to law every 7 or 5 or 3 or annually. One of the things that surprised me is that I found a group of people in the electoral office that love elections. I didn't know that elections could be loved, that people could work for 4 or 5 years to that day when it, or that time when it will be held, so that they can put their full skills on display. This is why I get upset, to tell you the truth. I get upset when I hear anybody threatening election workers and putting people, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that is more barbaric than anything else, because the whole framework of elections reside with competent, efficient people who are committed to their work, who go out and do them every day at election time. But I'm coming back. Democracy comes largely from our West African heritage. And what I did was to go back to look at where we have come from among the Akan in Ghana, because Coromantine is not a tribe. It is a place where slaves were exported. I went and looked at the Igbo. spelled differently. IBO, or some Jamaicans who didn't quite get it, IBOE, or Ibibo, or Congo. And let me tell you, if you want to hear where some of our problems come from, don't look at it only in terms of whole tribe. Look at it in terms of the tradition with respect to men and women and their orientation. Because some groups, like the Igbo and Ibibo, they don't like any form of central government. They don't want anybody over them. They want to make their own decisions. They are very achievement-oriented. And they use shame to get you to comply because there's no central government, no jail, and so on. That is when they came. So we looked at those. So democracy largely comes out of that tradition because it is important to consult with people, to come to consensus, to tell them what the consensus is and get them to agree. So when you hear we talk about consensus, and consensus does not mean that everybody agrees. Consensus means that there is no visible opposition. And there is no private sabotage of the agreement. And let me say this, concluded. The fathers of Jamaican democracy are Sir Alexander Bustamante and Norman Manley. They are the trusted leaders of two of the major groups in the country. They are, the members of the party, how should I put it? They are the leaders of the people who have put them there, not the other way around. So when you come to look at Nanny, Nanny is a Khan. She's a queen mother because they are matrilineal. And she exercises her power through her nephews. And in the Akan tradition, you settle agreements with a drink. And there is a chief to which Sir Alexander was elevated, you know, chief. It didn't come because he was chief minister, because he was chief in tradition. And he was elevated to that position. And that didn't mean that he was all that democratic in sense of thing, because all the leaders were, all strong leaders. The thing is told that he used to settle matters this way. Okay, we are going to do it this way. Those who agree with me can go over there and sign the book. Those who agree with me, come over here and have a drink with me. That settled matters. Norman Manley was no different. When he had disagreements, he organized in a particular way, and he got rid of the people who were causing disagreement. Strong leaders don't take kindly to challenge. But that don't mean that their time will not come when the people will not elect them, including the delegates of their parties and so on. So what I'm saying is, you look at Nanny, you see part of our heritage. You look at Sam Sharp. A lot of research still remains to be done whether he was Congolese or Igbo. Because really, he was an exponent of Adam Smith. Free labor is better than slave labor, and you should pay me. And what he organized a strike. Now, like everywhere you have a strike, you have some people who want to settle scores, especially if you did me wrong. There were people who settled scores. When you come to Bogle and Gordon, they were successes of emancipation. Black man and brown man. deeply Christian. They were not satisfied with their own success. They wanted to see those who the promise had not been fulfilled. They want to see them, and they were willing to put their lives on the line, and they did suffer from it. When you look at Marcus Garvey, you see somebody who recognized that what was happening in Jamaica was not only in Jamaica, it was worldwide. He had a global vision of the discrimination against black people. He never went to Africa. But more than that, he was always promoting what is true about us, agency. We have never been a people of victimhood. We have always been fighting back, talking back. There is an audacity that seems almost inherent in Jamaicans, that we will make you know that that is not copacetic. And when you look at the pair, notice the pair, Bogle and Gordon, deeply Christian, had international connections. And then when you come to Sir Alexander and Norman, I'm using them by the titles, and I'm being impertinent by calling them by their first names, because Norman Manley refused to take the British honor of Sir. When you look at them, they were cousins. Bustamante was born on a plantation in Hanover. He loved horse riding and racing horses. But his mother, his father was white, his mother was Indian. And the family excommunicated his father from the great house. He was born not named Bustamante, named Clark. And that whole experience so outraged him that he changed his name. Don't call me Bustamante. Don't call me Clark. And for his whole life, he was adamantly against exploitation. And he was forever committed. He came to the whole politics after he had made up his money. Some part as a nutrition in New York. So he was elected by voice on the streets of Kingston and Savlamar, leader of Labour. That was one side. The other side was Norman Manley, elected at a conference with delegates in which he's co-opted as president. The two cousins know each other, respected each other, worked together, because Bustamante was a founding member of the PNP. I rest my case to say that there's a lot to be learned about our history. I have tried my best to fill that gap. And I'll tell you this, because it happens practically every day. I wake up and find myself both part of the problem and part of the solution, because all the contradictions that make up Jamaican society resides in me. So when I look at the man in the mirror, I see it. And I fall to my knees and say, God help me. And at the end of the day, I say, thank you, Lord, for saving me from myself. Because were it not for him, I couldn't have made it through any day. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Miller. That was a wonderful discourse. It was very enlightening. And in the interest of time, we were to have a short question and answer period. But in the interest of time, I will ask for just 3 questions. And can I see a show of hands? I see Tony, Tony from Birmingham. Go ahead for me, Tony.
Yes, I'm from Birmingham, and I thought to get back tonight. So I better go first. Mine is, well, first of all, Professor Miller was, he was the principal, and I was a student at Mico when he was the principal. So he's come a far way, I've come a far way, and it's nice to see him again. And he signed my book for me to take back to Birmingham. I want to ask something specifically about the Jamaica going down the route of the Republic. You haven't mentioned anything. You've talked about the independence years, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you stand in terms of Republic? What sort of president should we have, ceremonial or otherwise? Can you address that for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Let me make it very explicit. You see, you can call things all kinds of names. So I find there's great confusion in the use of the term republic. I don't find it very helpful. And so my position is very simple. We need to have a Jamaican citizen who is head of state. We need to separate the presidency from the government, because the contestation for power within parties and between parties can be very brutal. I will not refer to anything here. I need a visa. So I believe that you should have somebody who represents national unity, that stands above the fray of politics as it is contested, who shows the dignity and the wisdom. We have had, I think, 6 governors general. They have risen from the ranks of politics, from academia, from religion. Somehow they have found it within themselves that having been elevated to governor generalship, they have stood above their roots. And successive prime ministers who hold the power to appoint them have reappointed them. We have the tradition. And if you go to the ceremonies, you know, you can see the pomp and the pageantry. So I'm very clear. I believe that an executive president doesn't serve anybody well. And I really find it difficult for people to be, we are an hour and 15 minutes from Miami. As far as I'm concerned, the United States has a federal king and 50 state kings who appoint their own governors, their own senators, and so on, and they can usurp the power of the people. And they can steal elections. And they can pass laws. I was living there for 4 years just before coming home a year ago. It's mind-boggling. You see, January 6th is not an academic thing for me, because my granddaughter was in Washington and I was to go and pick her up on the 6th of January in the evening. I could only go in on the morning, but everything was still in place. And if there was ever a coup, that was one.
Professor Miller, distinguished guest, thank you so much for your exceptional, exquisite thesis. I'll draw on the words of Professor John Henrik Clarke in saying, history is the clock that tells us where we have been what we have done, who we are, and what we still need to do. So my question for you are twofold. First, as a Calabar man, I'm taking a liberty, right? So first, what marching orders would you give to the next generation of Jamaicans across the diaspora in thinking, in conceptualizing and actualizing who we must still become and what we still must do? And my second question, in that same vein, I'll segue on to Malik Mikel, who is part of that future history, to pose the next question to you.
Good evening, all. Professor Errol Miller, thank you for your wonderful speech. Thank you for enlightening us all today. My question is really, as a Jamaican, I was born in Jamaica, of course. I've lived in England for a while, and you can probably see by the fact that I'm not speaking patois right now. But I want to know, how can a person residing in the UK build that connection, that genuine connection with Jamaica, and make an impact from the UK?
Dr. Thomas, if I knew the answer to all of these questions, it would be something else, because you see, they are not academic matters. I believe that young people today are being dealt a very unfair hand. We, their grandparents and parents, have benefited from the greatest explosion of opportunity in the history of the world. And we are presiding over the closure of opportunity. The normal expectation that your children will exceed you is now being challenged in a most serious way. I don't believe there is anything we can do for the young people. I think we have to work with the young people, because we ourselves have to change with them. Because we are challenged to make serious changes. To take the position that we have done things that the young people are not doing, because they are the most qualified and able. And if you read the Gleaner every year, every day or week, you see Jamaicans who have excelled. Because you see, wherever we have been, we have taken on those systems and excelled. Any notion of our inferiority is an imposition that we must get rid of. So you know, I am one of the things that I've been challenged with since going home on myself as chairman of a committee that is supposed to look at Calabar and help us make that change. And that change involves all of us. Let me answer Mr. Malik. Yes. The issue you raise is one that affects us at a deep level. The best way I can answer you is this. I have 4 grandchildren who are all born in America. My grandson spent 6 weeks with us recently. He is so committed that he has gone and obtained his Jamaican citizenship and passport, and he loves Jamaica. And so he came down, having done a project in Paris, to Jamaica to cool out. So I got a chance to live with him for a period. And one evening I said to him, Philip, you know you are thoroughly American, and that your love of Jamaica is highly romantic. And he says, Granddad, what do you mean? I pointed to something else that had happened. He was sitting beside, we were talking, a nice conversation. And he has some very serious ideas. He's not a slight person at all, very deep. And he says to me, Granddad, a Uber is coming for me in 7 minutes. And I say to him, Philip, I didn't see you do anything. He says, well, it automatically finds out where I am. I want to go somewhere, I've been there, I just click it, and it's coming, and it says 7 minutes. And I realized, no, we don't do just in time. If he's there without a car, and we have to plan it, we have to depend upon each other. We can't just get up and have it straight there. Then I realized, and everybody is looking down, nobody is looking up. I hope, in other words, life in Jamaica is not as easy than anything in the UK or in the US or Canada. And there may be nostalgia. And then you see there is a little thing that develops between those who have been in the diaspora and ourselves. It is this: when you come home, you think you're better than us. And so people put you through an apprenticeship for about 3 years. And if you don't pick up your marbles and go back, then we take you seriously and we deal with you. I am just saying that there's a lot to be worked out. And I'll say this also. Mr. Randall, in terms of having read, gave me a book about Hands Across the Atlantic, in which he has been studying families that are in the UK, in Canada, in the United States, and in the Caribbean. And they still strive to keep together. They have things together. They keep in touch with each other. They know the names of their cousins and so on. And they are really struggling because we are really at an inflection point in the world in which we are living behind different national borders with different things that are happening. We are the older generation and so on and so forth. So it's not academic. And I'll just say this. My father was was English in terms of his cultural tastes and admiration, but he was a nationalist. And he decided years ago that he was going to institute certain traditions, which we are still following, although their parents have died. And I don't know quite how to speak to the next generation who are living in here and there, because I don't have that experience. But when we meet, as we did in the grill in July, we sing a song that comes in the family, For What We Treasure. We are here together again. We are here together again. And who knows when we'll be here together again, singing here together again. We are here, here, here. In other words, the best thing that we can do is to maintain presence with each other and understand and respect the circumstances of the differences, knowing that all of these things that we're fighting with are nothing but social constructs that have no eternal meaning.
Thank you, Professor Miller. I know that there will be a lot of questions, but you will have an opportunity at the end to speak with him because he'll be doing a signing of his book. But now it gives me great pleasure to move into the third segment of our evening with the wonderful folklorist, Miss Evelyn Chronicle, who has been described in the UK Weekly Gleaner as the UK's answer to Miss Lou. Help me welcome Miss Evelyn Chronicle.
Ladies and gentlemen, and happy Black History Month. It is my absolute pleasure to be here. Some of you are probably very familiar with me. I am very, very proud of my Jamaican heritage. And of course, I love to bring to the stage our Jamaican oral traditions, histories, and heritages. But we don't have a lot of time tonight, so I'm just going to give you a little sample. Everybody know about Miss Lou, yes? Mm-hmm. The Right Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley. I know they say she's late, but she lives in my heart every day. So, yes, I went and I studied at the Jamaica National School of Drama all those years ago, now the Edna Manley School of Performing Arts and Culture. But, and even though I could do a lot of different things, from Shakespeare to the works, I choose to put my talent back in our culture. So sit back and relax while I entertain and educate, okay? All right then. So, where is the new High Commission? Hello, sir. Good to see you and very much welcome. Very much welcome. And to Mr. Miller. Thank you. It's my pleasure to meet you. I think my mouth is big enough, but I will have the mic. You can hear me? You can hear me without the mic? Oh, technology. All right then. All right. Sir, you can have a seat, you know. Yes, sir. I just wanted to see the face. I wanted to. All right then. So, I'm just gonna can I kindly ask you to just thank you very much. I'm going with it now, I know I knew. All right then. So, if I like to do something like this, I like to do something about the language, the Jamaica language. Yes? And the first piece I want to do for you is called the Jamaica language. Listen, no? Miss Lou Auntie Rochi say, Ibexar. And while her temper fi true, anytime she hear anybody class in the Jamaican language as a corruption of the English language. For if that be the case, they would have to say that English is a corruption of the Norman French, the Latin, and all them other language that them say English derive from. You no hear the word? English derive, but Jamaica corrupt. What an inferiority, eh? Miss Lou Auntie Rochi say, if the Jamaica language is a corruption of the English language, then it is also a corruption of our African Tree language. Because you see, the Jamaica language did start long time ago, when our English forefathers used to muss and bone with African ancestors. We stop talk for them language and talk so English. Because you see, our English forefathers couldn't understand what we African ancestors were saying when they was talk to them one another. But we African ancestors pop we English forefathers, man. You know, pop them and this guy's up. You know what I mean if he pops, Maddie? You mean trick them, man. And this guy's up the language in such a way that it sound like it no got no English in a hit. And still and for all, up until today, although whole heap of Jamaican word them has no English in it, when we ready, we can't make it sound like it no got no English in it at all. And also talking English, somebody can understand what we are saying if we don't want them to understand what we are saying. You get that one there? You haven't been here too long, have you? All right then. You see, Miss Lou Auntie Rochi say, the Jamaican language is a bona fide language, and we don't have to shame at it at all. Yeah? It's more direct and to the point than English language. You take, for instance, when an English smaddy talk to one smaddy, and them say you. And when them a talk to more than one smarty, them say you. In a Jamaica, we know want they mix up. You see? So when we are talk to one smarty, we say you. And when we are talk to more than one smarty, we say oh no. Oh man. And take for instance again, when the English would say bad, worse, worst. In a Jamaica, we no want to buy it up for we tongue. You see? So when something bad, we say bad. When it bad, we say it was. When it was, we say it. All right then. You see? Bona fide language. And sometimes, you know, we style up the word them to sound like what we're talking about. Like you take, for instance, now, when we say something, buguyaga. You know, say it not nice and it not sound good. But when we say smarty, bunununus, hey, sir, you hear all that nice. You know, say them nice, and we like them. And take, for instance, now, when we say something, ruku ruku. It's shaky, shaky. Yes? All right then. And when we say picnic, no kuru kuru up the wall. Mark up that. Yes? All right, man. So you see, it is a bona fide language and we don't have to shame at it at all. Like one fool girl when it come to England long time ago. And them ask her to represent the Jamaican folks and we go, one shift me got. I wonder if you remember that one day. One shift me got, ratakoti, same place it. You don't know that one day? Next time I do that for you. Here the fool girl. You know what is a ratta though? You know what is a ratta? What is a ratta? Ratta mouse, a rat. Yes? All right then. So here this fool girl. The sole underwear garment I possess, a rodent destroy it. Fool girl, man, just spoil up the Jamaica language. Aye. Thank you very much. All right. You can't save the class today. Okay. But talking this and talking that, you know, even though we are proud of our Jamaican language, still and for all, there is still some people who are ashamed of our Jamaican dialect. And it's long time this going on. This next piece that I'm going to do for you called No Liquor Twang talks about that. Miss Lou was before her time, I'm telling you. Goes No Liquor Twang. You have to just imagine with me, yeah? Come with me, yeah? I'm going to be that drama school thing here going on. Me glad for see you come back, boy. What, Lord, you let me down. Me share my used to tell all of me proudness drop a grub. You mean you go to America and you spend 6 months there and you come back not a bit better than how you go, eh? Why you not shame? I saw you come, not even a little language, boy, not even a little twang. Your sister that work only 1 week with American. Looks, she talks so nice now that we had the juice to understand. Why? You couldn't improve yourself. How you get so much pay? You spent 6 months of foreign. How you come back ugly same way? Not even a drapes, trousers, or a pass the rhythm coat. Why? Not even a gold teeth or a gold chain around your throat? Suppose me last me pass, go introduce you to a stranger. As me lamented son that lately come from America. They would have laughed at me, boy. Me couldn't tell them so. They would have said me lie. You was a spend time back a Moko. No back answer me, boy. You chat too bad. Ha! Shut up your mouth. Me no know how you are your papa go make it out. If you want to please him, make him think say you bring back something new. You always call him Pa. This evening when he come back, you better say poo. Aye. Yes, sir. You know, Miss Lou, she's very colorful. But that's how we stay in Jamaica for true, you know. That's how we stay. Yes? But we must never forget, and I heard you saying, sir, who we are, no matter where we come from. Yes, we must still be very proud of our heritage and our culture, because, and we need to bring it to the youths as well, because if we're not careful, it can go. So this one is talking about bands of killing. And I am going to pick on you, sir. Bands are killing. So, are you a the man me hear about? Are you them said that take whole heap of English oath that you're going to kill off dialect? Let me get this straight, Master Charlie. For me not quite understand. You're going to kill off all of the dialect them or just the Jamaica one? If you're that equal up with the English language, then what make you going to feel inferior when it come to dialect? If you can't sing Linstead Market and Water Come a Me Eye, you will have to stop singing Old Lang Syne and Coming Through the Rye. Master Charlie, the language when prouder, when honor and respect. Poor Master Charlie, him no know say spring from dialect. That them start to turn language from the 14th century. 500 years gone by, and them got more dialect than we. You will have to kill off the Lancashire, the Yorkshire, the Cockney, the Broad Scotch and the Irish brogue before you can start to kill me. You will have to get the Oxford Book of English Verse and tear out Chaucer, Burns, Lady Grizzel, and plenty Shakespeare. When you done kill wit and humor, when you don't kill variety, a hunger then, Master Charlie, you can come and try and kill originality. For Master Charlie, though, mind how you da read them English book upon yourself, you know. For if you drop a H, ha, Master God, you'd have to go kill yourself. Aye. Oh, Miss Lou. Yes. The first to have put our language in written form. And I know we are rushing out of time, but you know, it's 75 years Windrush. And anybody in here from the 50s? Okay, 60s? Yes, all right then. So you're still, all right then. So, this one I'm going to read, if you don't mind. Colonization in reverse. So, what a joyful news, Miss Marty. I feel like my heart going burst. Jamaica people colonizing England in reverse. By the 100, by the 1,000, from country and from town, by the ship load and by the plane load, Jamaica is England bound. Them a pour out of Jamaica. Everybody future plan is to get a big time job and settle in the motherland. What a island. What a people. Man and woman, old and young, just a pack up them bag and baggage and turn history upside down. Some people don't like to travel. But to show them loyalty, them open up a cheap fare to England agency. And week by week, them shipping out them countrymen like fire to immigrate and populate the seat of the empire. Uno see how life is funny. Uno see the turnabout. Jamaica live a box bread out of English people mouth. For when them reach England and start to play them different role, some will settle down for work, but some will settle for the duel. Jane say the duel is not too bad, 'cause them paying she £2 a week for seek a job that suit her dignity. Me say, Jane will never find work at the rate where she da look. For all day long she sit down pan couch, pan hand fan couch, and read love story book. What a devilment a England. Them face war and brave the worst. But I wonder how them going to face and stand colonization in reverse. Aye, 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 aye. Yes. So, yeah, happy Black History Month again, people. All right? But you know what? Last piece, and we're talking so much, and you know, you've been sitting there, and it's time to wake up. Don't worry, I'm not going to get you come up here and dance a bit of Kuminar and Dinky Mini, and no, don't worry about it. But you're going to sing. You're going to sing with me? All right, then, who knows nobody's business? Who that? Who that? Lie. Hey, I mean, not say you know everybody's business, though. She ready, she ready, she ready. All right, then. Salama, grandpa, Ghana, Ecuador, left in wife and picnic out the door. Nobody business but him one. Salama, grandma swear she nah go beg. Thief we all brought Sammy foul and egg. Nobody business but me own. Join me now with the chorus. Nobody business, business. Nobody. Nobody business but me own. Oh no, me say. Business, business, nobody business but me own. Listen me now. If me take me number 11 foot, push it in a number 7 boot, nobody business but me own. Oh no, me say, if me take me number 11 foot, push it in a number 7 boot, nobody business but me own. Once again with the chorus.
Nobody's business. Nobody business.
But my own. Oh no, me say.
Nobody's business, business. Nobody's business, business. Nobody's business but me.
You sound so good, you sound so good. Me I gotta split it up. So, you're gonna go. Nobody business. And you're gonna go. A fastness. Nobody business. A fastness. Oh no, me say.
Nobody's business. A fastness. Nobody's business. A fastness. Nobody's business but me own.
If me even was tangarang, me want fi pose as 21. Nobody business but me own. Me say, if me even old as tangarang, me want fi pose as 21. Nobody business but me own. Once again with the chorus.
Nobody's business. A fastness. Nobody's business. A fastness. Nobody's business but me own.
Oh no, me say.
Nobody's business. A fastness. Nobody's business. Nobody's business but me own.
Listen me now. If me married to a nigger man, me left him for one nice white one. Nobody business but me own. Me say, if me married to a nigger man, me left him for one Chinese one. Nobody business but me own. Once again with the chorus.
Nobody's business. Nobody's business. A fastness.
Oh no, me say. Nobody business. Nobody business but me own. You feel left people business. You too fast. Left people business. You too fast. Left people business. I mind you own. Me say left people business. You too fast. Left people business. You too fast. Left people business. I mind you own. Thank you very much. Thank you. As Miss Lou said, clap on yourself. All right. Thank you so very much. I can't go coughing.
Thank you. Wasn't that wonderful? Can we give her another round of applause? We have so much talent within our community. Thank you so much, Evelyn. And it's left to me to now do the vote of thanks, which will be very quick, just to say thanks to Professor Miller for this wonderful evening. Your presentation was so thought-provoking. It was, I might not have been, but I was watching it on the live feed on our YouTube channel. So you can tell your friends, they can see it. If they've missed it tonight, it will be on our YouTube channel, the High Commission's YouTube channel. It was really wonderful, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this evening as we celebrate our Heritage Week, which also coincides very wonderfully with the celebration of Black History Month in the United Kingdom. Thank you all for turning up. Thank you, Miss Margaret and Dwight, for your wonderful performance at the beginning of the program. And thank you all for turning out. We do have some refreshments, and Professor Miller will be here for a bit, and he will be signing copies of his books, and they're on the table to my left and to your right. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a safe journey home.